Do you guys ever have like that opinion that no matter what anyone says, they could literally give you all the factual evidence. You're just not going to change your mind. Like for me, mayonnaise in coffee has to be the nastiest thing I've ever heard. I don't know how Will Levis has a starting job, let alone a girlfriend, after admitting that, but that's just my opinion. There are opinions that we all have that we are going to just die on that hill, no matter what you try to do to prove to us. Otherwise, we are still going to stick to our guns on that. We have a very interesting take when it comes to college football now that spring practices and games have passed. Of well, what's that hill that the three of us are going to die on when it comes to that topic? As well, NBA.com released their 1 through 8 playoff rankings with the remaining teams. And spoiler alert, we think it's absurd. We are going to give our take. And lastly, NHL playoffs in the second round. There's a lot of news to talk about that, but there's also some other news that have come to light recently in the NHL that needs to be talked about. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan. And yes, if you heard in the intro, spring games had just come and go. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to that. What we see, what we feel, kind of what we're predicting, as well as the whole college football world, because, well, that's pretty much all you kind of speculate right now until the games actually begin come fall. It's all speculation. But there are some glimmers of hope that you may see if your team did not do well last year, but they had a great transfer portal this year. So there are plenty of things to talk about there. And I actually want to jump right into that because there are some takes out there that we see online that just seem absurd, but there are some takes of our own that we want to talk about that, like I said, it's that hill that we plan to die on. We are going to ride with it no matter what. David, what is that specific take that you will ride with throughout this season?
So for me, I am going to say that Graham Mertz is going to have at least 35 touchdown passes in the upcoming season. And the reason why I feel confident in saying that is for the following reasons. One, he's now a year developed into Billy Napier's system. And listen, say whatever you want about Napier. There's definitely a lot of criticisms that you can throw at him fairly. But to his credit, he took Graham Mertz when everybody thought that was a joke, and Graham Mertz was fairly serviceable in 1 year under Billy. You look at how he progressed last year. First 4 games he was kind of pedestrian. He only threw 4 touchdowns in his first 4 games, so he was averaging a touchdown pass a game. But then in his last 11 games, when he became more comfortable in the system and became more comfortable throwing the ball, he had 16 touchdown passes in his last 11 games. And through a 12-game season, that translates to 27 touchdown passes. And also just look for the rise of Trey Wilson. Freshman last year, his stats didn't really jump out, but every time Trey Wilson had the ball in his hands, you could just see the potential. And I'm expecting a breakout year from him. Gator fans are expecting a breakout year from him, and I think that breakout year is going to help Graham Mertz tremendously. So, yeah, as I said, I think Graham Mertz is going to get 35 touchdown passes at least, and I feel very confident in saying that.
Yeah, Graham Mertz, I feel like showed improvement last year, especially being his first year over in Florida. Yes, he's lost some weapons and losing ETN at running back, but I do think that Graham Mertz is going to have another improvement year, so I could see that take being well warranted, David. So, Ed, what is your take?
Well, I am going to go up on the hill, camp, put a tent, stay there until I die. That Quinn Ewers is going to be the number one quarterback in the SEC next year. There is going to be some competition for that spot between Carson Beck, between Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart. It's there are those quarterbacks being in the SEC last year. They got an upfront take on what it is to be a quarterback in that league. But I think Quinn Ewers in his third year at Texas, complete control of this team, complete control of this offense, is going to be the number one quarterback in the SEC. Now, the only comparison I can really give him is the one with Carson Beck, because they both played Alabama last year. And Quinn Ewers, 350 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Carson Beck, not nearly as effective by himself when he played Alabama in the SEC championship game. So there is that comparison there. Then you take a look at the fact that iron sharpens iron. Quinn Ewers is going to have somebody right there on his tail to be the starting quarterback at Texas in Arch Manning, whereas Carson Beck, he's going to have Gunnar Stockton, a redshirt sophomore, hasn't done much to this point, whereas Arch Manning, we've all seen the hype train. We've seen him on the field during a couple of games last year, but such a high level prospect is going to kind of put the onus on Quinn Ewers to continue to get better, because he could get past very easily. And the last point I'll make on that is he's going to be behind one of the best offensive lines in the country, which means fewer hits, which means he's going to be able to go through his progressions, and he's going to be able to navigate the offense without having to run for his life, unlike some other teams in the SEC, South Carolina. But what do y'all think on that?
I mean, I don't hate it, although I do disagree, just because, and it pains me to say this as a Florida fan, but I do think that Carson Beck is going to be the best quarterback in the SEC and one of the 5, maybe 3 best quarterbacks in the entire country. But I think you make a great case for Quinn Ewers, Ed. And obviously, me being a rival fan, I hope Quinn Ewers ends up being the better quarterback. Although when we play you guys, I hope that he's not a better quarterback when we play you guys. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, Ed, I do agree with you, because I think Quinn Ewers deserves his respect. I think that you're right at the same time, David. Two things to be right at once: that yes, Carson Beck being one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country. Well, Quinn Ewers is also one of the other 3 too, and I think that Quinn Ewers has proven more, has shown more already in his career, that he deserves to be atop of the quarterback rankings, especially in the SEC. But we're going to find out. This is Texas's first year in the SEC, year number 1, and there is a lot of pressure riding on him, but I think that he'll be able to sustain all that pressure. Whereas for me, my biggest take is the hype surrounding Will Howard at OSU, Ohio State, is the biggest smokescreen since Kanye West running for president. I mean, it to me it's absurd. And the fact that they have him as the 4th best odds to win the Heisman this year is also another absurdity. I mean, plus 1,300. The only players that have better odds than him is Dillon Gabriel at Oregon, Quinn Ewers at Texas, and then Carson Beck at Georgia. And yes, they are all great, but I don't think Will Howard has gotten to that great status yet. Yes, I know he came from a Kansas State team who did great just a couple years ago and winning the Big 12 over TCU, but he's going to be in a different league, in my opinion. Yes, he is going to a better team. He has an upgrade being at Ohio State. I just don't really see the hype that's surrounding him equal to his talent per se. It's going to be tough to play in the Big Ten, especially with the additions of Oregon, the USCs, but of course you still have the other powerhouses in the Big Ten, such as the defending national champs, Michigan Wolverines. So I don't really see the hype. He could prove me wrong, but I plan to die on that hill the rest of this season that comes up, that Will Howard is not going to finish a top 4 candidate in the Heisman rankings, let alone top 5 in the quarterback rankings towards the end of the year. So that's how I feel when it comes to Will Howard. Do not hate him. I do not think he is bad. I just don't think he is great.
Well, it's interesting, Matthew, because, and I don't remember where I heard this from, but someone made a great point that for whatever reason, Ohio State quarterbacks always seem to do well. It's like year after year they have different quarterbacks, and whoever their quarterback is always putting up these great numbers. I mean, honestly, when's the last time Ohio State even had a bad quarterback? Maybe whoever their quarterback was in 2011 when they went like 6-7. But other than that, when's the last time you heard of a bad quarterback at Ohio State? I mean,
Kirk
even
Herbstreit.
what?
Kirk Herbstreit.
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
FSU fans are loving that.
well,
Heck, even oh gosh, who was the quarterback last year? Literally last year.
yeah, he transferred not to. Did he transfer to Nebraska officially?
Kyle
Kyle
McCord.
Cord,
Kyle
yeah.
I mean,
McCord, yeah.
even Kyle McCord, who Ohio State fans, not all of them, but I would say a decent number of them didn't like him as a player. But even he was fairly decent at the position.
Yeah, but you're playing the Rutgers, the Maryland, teams, stuff like that. And that was also my point of the Pac-12 essentially coming to the Big Ten. A lot of those teams. Not saying that every team in the Pac-12 is good, because they aren't. It should bring a little bit more competition to them that they aren't necessarily always getting when they play the likes of the Rutgers. And shoot, even Nebraska this year is going to be a whole lot more interesting than other years. But I that's why I feel like that. But you are absolutely right, David. Is that it seems like every year they have someone who does great. I mean, look at Cardale Jones, who came and stepped in and won a national championship for them. It's they always seem to have someone.
And the other part on being a quarterback at Ohio State is you already have probably 2 or 3 of the best top 10 wide receivers in the country on the field with you. And they can elevate the play of your quarterback just by being there.
Yeah, that
You
definitely
can
helps.
take a mid-level quarterback like a Will Howard, which I think he has more intangibles that are going to be exploited with a better roster than what he has been dealing with. He's going to look a lot better having those wide receivers that Ohio State seems to get every single year. They somehow get the most high flying Blue Angels type wide receivers on that roster every year, and it's going to make whatever quarterback is there look better than he actually is.
That is very true. When you look at it somewhat on paper, you feel like, all right, well, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, you're not really seeing much of an improvement, but you never know what could happen there. And like you said, with the wide receivers, Ohio State definitely got some within recruiting and transfer portal, so that is something to look out for. But enough about this side of the ball. I want to talk about the 11 on the other side of the ball. And Ed, I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good question for us when it comes to the defense.
Well, looking at some of the more explosive offenses in college football last year, there were 3 teams that stuck out to me that just they could not hold water on defense long enough for the offense to win a game and win the games that mattered, because that's one thing to have an offense that can outscore a team, but you have to have at least some balance on your team of defense to have some stops and not be a complete sieve out there on the field. And my question is which team do you think will have a big enough improvement on defense that will actually help these explosive offenses win games and not just be a liability to the high flying offenses? And the 3 teams that I'm going to specifically ask about is LSU, USC, and Miami. Go.
I'm going to start really quick with Miami's going to have such a competition trying to figure out who's going to blow the games the most, their defense or their head coach. That's their biggest issue, their biggest
Heal.
yes. I mean, we have already seen Mario Cristobal give up several games, but I'm going to go with LSU here. The reason why I'm going to go with LSU is Brian Kelly. When he was at Notre Dame, he seemed to always have a pretty good defense there. And I feel like it's kind of almost a rarity to see that at LSU. And LSU, I mean, they do have some shoes to fill with Jaden Daniels, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, going to the NFL. So they are going to have shoes there, but all three of them do. Caleb Williams at USC, who was the Heisman winner the year before that, they're going to have to fill his shoes. And then now at Miami, Cam Ward transferring over, they probably have the best scenario, but I just feel like LSU is going to eventually get into their groove on defense. I feel like Brian Kelly is just always showing that, but I think it's kind of up in the air when it comes to those three teams because of their history of lack of defense.
David?
For me, it's easy, and my answer is USC. And the reason why I say that is because look who USC got a defensive coordinator, D'Anton Lynn. What did What did D'Anton Lynn do at UCLA? He improved them from being literally one of the worst defenses in the league to one of the best defenses, just like that. And you combine that with the elite talent that USC always gets. That's what I'm going with. I think USC is going to be the one that improves the most on defense.
Well, between those two, I agree that Miami is in a better situation if the head coach gets out of the way and lets the players do their jobs. But between what you two guys said, I'm going to go with LSU. It is Blake Baker's job to put these guys in a better position, but also I don't think you're going to have that much of a drop off going to Nussmeier as your quarterback than what you have somebody starting in Lincoln Riley's offense fresh off the road. Nussmeier's been there. He was the backup last year. He's got the offense in hand, and he's going to pick up where Jaden Daniels left off. It's just the defense. Then they're going to be a little more attacking. They're going to be a little more SEC style defense than what we were privy to last year, and I think that's gonna be worth at least a win or two, which is going to be really important when you're talking about the fact that there are no divisions and it isn't the same 4 or 5 teams that you're playing every year that are super on defense to begin with. So
Yeah, well,
LSU is going to have a much better chance on that this year.
Well, there's actually a reason why I did not say LSU. And I know when you talk about defense in college football, the elite defense, like the great defenses and all that, LSU is always in that conversation. But guys, let's be honest here. Truly, when was the last time LSU even had a great defense? I mean, they're always brought up in the conversation, but the truth is they haven't had. I mean, the last time they had a great defense was probably 2011. Maybe not that far back, but it's been a while since LSU truly had a great defense.
The Mad Hatter.
Yeah, I was gonna say when the Honey Badger was there. I mean, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but maybe when the Honey Badger was there, possibly they had a good defense. But I totally agree with you there, David. And a part of me almost wants to go with USC. The tough thing is this is also going to be their first year in a new conference, playing in the Big Ten. I don't know how things are going to adjust, but I know Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley, since he was at Oklahoma, I mean, it's such an air raid type of offense that the defenses always seem to struggle. I mean, it did when Baker was there. It did when Kyler Murray was there. And we saw as well when Caleb Williams was there. And I saw it personally as a Duck fan when we're known for just flying around, firing on all cylinders when it comes to speed and the uniforms. We lacked a little bit on defense. We were always so high on offense that our defense struggled. And I see that with everywhere Lincoln Riley goes for the most part. So that's why it is kind of tough to go with USC, where LSU, at least playing in the SEC all these years, you would hope that they, can they know the task ahead of them, that they have to have a pretty legit defense if they want to compete in the SEC. So I mean, we will find out. I think one thing is certain, though, is Mario Cristobal will find a way to blow another game this year. It's just kind of death, taxes, and Mario Cristobal blowing a game. It's just three things that can't escape.
Nobody is better at snatching defeat from the jaws of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory than Mario Cristobal is.
And just as a quick side note, we're going to get an answer to this question week 1. LSU at USC.
Look at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say it's almost not fair because last year we saw Florida State and LSU week 1. And, but at the same time, though, LSU, that they actually did prove that their defense sucked. So never mind. We were approved already early last year, too, when Jordan Travis and Florida State ran all over them. So, but on to the NBA. There's been a lot of exciting things that happened here in the NBA that just the last couple of days, the last couple hours, where Jokic from the Denver Nuggets has officially won the MVP. So I do want to say that and get that out of the way because that is really big news there. It is his third MVP, right? Did I hear in the last 4 years? So, I mean, last year was Joel Embiid of the Sixers who did win the MVP. People would argue that Jokic should have won.
Yeah, but it's it's basically fatigue. I mean, literally the exact same thing with Michael Jordan. The only reason why they didn't give it to him in a couple of those years was because they were tired of giving it to him and they felt like someone else deserved it. Yeah. Same thing here with Jokic. He definitely should have won last year, but the voters just felt like it was Embiid's time.
Yeah. So there is that bit of news, as well as Rudy Gobert winning Defensive Player of the Year. He now ties Ben Wallace and is, not Hakeem. Who am I? Oh gosh, I am just drawing a blank. But he ties them for the most Defensive Player of the Year award. So that's a big.
I don't think it was Dwight Howard. I think Dwight won 3 of those. He actually three-peated a defensive player, which is pretty impressive.
I did misspeak there. He won his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award, which now ties him for the lead with Ben Wallace. And I will remember the other person, so I apologize for that. But that Rudy Gobert has proven to be such a consistent threat on defense. He's done that his whole career.
Did you say Edward Gobert? Do you mean Rudy Gobert?
Rudy Gobert.
You were probably thinking of his teammate Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards has been doing pretty darn good too. So, but I want to go over these rankings, 1 through 8, NBA.com released. I'm going to start with 1 through 4, so we don't get sidetracked here. But Boston Celtics, they have number 1, followed by the Minnesota Timberwolves at number 2, and then by the Oklahoma City Thunder at 3, and lastly, the Denver Nuggets at 4. 1 through 4. Where do you guys agree? Where do you guys disagree? David, I'll start with you.
I mean, I don't hate the Celtics at 1 and the Wolves at 2, but personally, I would switch them over. I have the Wolves number 1. I mean, I don't see how you can't rank the Wolves as number 1. I mean, not only are they undefeated. I mean, look at the way that they're playing defense. The length on those guys and the way that they're just pressuring their opponents and the way that they're just completely dismantling the defending champions. My gosh, they're just making it look so easy. So I have the Wolves at number 1, Celtics at 2. Thunder I got at number 3, especially with the way that they dismantled the Mavericks last night. I think 3 is a reasonable ranking for them. And then speaking of the Mavericks, I have them at number 4.
Ed?
Well, I've got a little bit different idea here in that the 2 number 1 seeds are playing like number 1 seeds. They are really just taking it to everybody up to this point. So while I agree the Timberwolves have somewhat dismantled the Nuggets up to this point, 2 games in Denver, I would not say that they have gotten to the point where they can make that claim over the 2 number 1 seeds that are playing like it. they've got to get through the number one seed before they can overtake them. That's just the way my math works on that. And just as a side note, uh, did you guys see uh, the throwing of items onto the court the other day? I think that kind of attitude from the bench of Minnesota, I could go
What
against them in the long term.
are you talking about? Are you talking about the Heat pack? Jamal
Yeah.
Murray threw that. Yeah, that was from the Nuggets. That wasn't from the Wolves.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten that wrong. I got the team switched on that. So, but the point still stands. It's Boston, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, and the Nuggets for me in the top four.
Yeah, for me, I think Boston, they separated themselves in the East, and it clearly shows
Oh yeah,
that there was no one even close to them.
They separated themselves from the rest of the league. Let's be
Y-
honest about that.
This is very true, and regular season he did that, but I see it still transferring over to the playoffs, and I have them at my number one. I mean, they have been consistent in the playoffs. They are the number three offense as well as the number three defense. They are staying consistent as can be when it comes to that, and their one loss I feel like was just such an anomaly. I mean, the Heat hit 23 threes that night. It was such an anomaly for them to lose, but yes, they did lose, but they still won the series. I still have them as the best team, not the hottest team, because I do think the hottest team right now is the Minnesota Timberwolves. So there is a difference there, and that's why I want to have them at 2 also, because they are the number one offense in the playoffs right now. They almost seem like they're on a different level, because look at what they're doing against Denver Nuggets. Not only are they up 2-0 on the defending champs, you're seeing a guy like Jamal Murray do things that he's not used to doing, and that's throwing the Heat pack on the floor. That's embarrassing. And I am in agreement with him not being suspended. I'm in agreement with the fine, because he embarrassed himself enough by doing that. That is not an NBA player to do that. And Ed will tell you. I mean, he almost hurt his own teammate by doing that, right, Ed?
yes. He was within a half an inch, of somebody landing on it instead of kicking it.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why the Nuggets are facing frustration is, listen, all the credit in the world to them. They won the title last year, and they definitely earned it. But the truth is, Denver didn't exactly face the toughest path to the finals. They actually, I thought, faced one of the easiest paths to the finals in recent memory. And then, of course, they beat the Lakers, and the Lakers aren't that good. They aren't that great of a team. The Wolves are truly the first team that they have faced in the playoffs in the past couple of years that have really just bullied them, have just completely pushed them, and the Nuggets just don't know how to respond to that.
Yep. It's why I also have at number 3 the OKC Thunder. They are the youngest team out there, guys,
Mhm.
and you would think that they were one of the most veteran teams out there. The reason why I say that is because it's not their offense, it's their defense. When you have a team that is showing they are the number one defense in the playoffs, you instantly think of veteran pieces there, and it's not. They're the youngest team in the NBA and in the playoffs right now. So they're shining, and they're shining bright, because not only are they showing that they have a serious chance of winning this year, being the number one seed, also they are showing that they have the future. So I got OKC at 3. This is where my thing is actually going to shake up here, actually pretty big. Is I've got the Knicks at number 4. The Knicks to me are playing also like a NBA playoff team. Although I know things got a little close with the Sixers, I think it should have got close with the Sixers. I think that played out exactly how it should have because the Sixers are a good team. They had a real well-rested Joel Embiid, even though he had his migraines and a couple other pains, but he'll always have that as long as he's in the league. But that series did go down to the wire because it should have. But I think the Knicks, when I look at them and playing, they are a great team. If they could get DiVincenzo going as well, hitting a couple threes a game at least, just like he did with OKC, Golden State, then I think that they will be even more complete. But also on a side note, we have now seen that Jalen Brunson has gone down to an injury. It sounds very like a Nancy Kerrigan situation, if you ask me. 4 straight 46-point games. Absolutely, there was something going on there. I mean, he has a foot injury that is to be determined on his status, but that is a big blow to a team like the Knicks because Jalen Brunson has been their leader, and a great leader he has been. He has now finished officially 5th in the NBA MVP voting, but he deserved it. Jalen Brunson has had a great year and a great playoff so far. So that's who I have at 4. So my rankings did shake up there. But let's go with NBA.com's 5 through 8, and then I'll go ahead and get your take, Ed. NBA.com's got the Mavericks at 5, the Knicks at 6, Pacers at 7, and Cavs at 8. Ed, you agree or disagree?
I'm gonna do a little bit of a shakeup and put the Knicks at 5 because they are playing a style of ball that it's assignment based. Brunson has been the leader. Everybody knows their roles, and they have played to their roles like they should. Whereas the Mavericks being at number 6 for me, you've got your 2 stars. You've got Luka. Uh, uh, you've got Kyrie out there, and they're just trying to ball out, and everybody else kind of play around them. Well, that doesn't work when you get this deep into the playoffs. So I'm going to have the Knicks at number 5, because I do expect of the 4 teams in the 5 through 8 category, they are most likely to move on compared to the rest of these. For number 7, I've got the Pacers because at this point they can outscore their bad defense for the most part, but I don't think they're going to get past the Knicks if Brunson is able to go with, be able to come back from the foot injury. And the Cavaliers, those poor Cavaliers, uh, they are basically 5th graders going to a high school gymnasium, and they're going to get run out. It's not going to take very long to get them out of the playoffs.
They let a young and experienced team, Ed and the Orlando Magic, bully them and push them around. Imagine what the Celtics are. They've already, the Celtics are already bullying the Cavs. I mean, this is going to be a sweep. I mean, maybe Cleveland steals one in Cleveland, but I think at most this is going to go 5 games.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep. David, how are your rankings on there?
So number 5, I've got the Knicks. Number 6 might guys, but I got the Nuggets at number 6. I know they are the defending champions, guys, but the Nuggets truthfully have not looked that great. And I think even in the series against the Lakers, even though the Nuggets won that in 5, really I think that was more the Lakers losing it than the Nuggets winning it, because the Lakers were up by double digits in every single game. They were leading at half in every single game, and they blew it every single game. And unlike the Lakers, the Bulls actually have a pulse, and the Nuggets are getting exposed. And so that's why I have the Nuggets down in the bottom half of my standings. And then number 7, I got the Pacers, and then I got the Cavaliers. I feel like pretty much everybody who's doing these playoff rankings, I think everybody is unanimous in keeping the Pacers at 7 and the Cavs at 8.
Yeah, and I'm kind of follow that trend there. I mean, I do have Denver at 5. They are the defending champs. They haven't really made any changes whatsoever. They still have the same team. Jokic is still MVP caliber player, as we know because he just won MVP. So I feel like you have to respect them by having them at 5. But for me, this is where things are a little different because the Mavericks, although they do have Luka, they do have Kyrie. I think they have struggled really hard to find their identity. And that's why I don't have them at 6. I actually have the Pacers at 6. Just like Ed said, at least their offense could outrun that atrocious defense. They really can. And I don't want to have any speculation because Brunson could be hurt. So that I don't want to look for into the future when it comes to that. But the Pacers got another great young team, especially with Tyrese Halliburton there, who my Kings, I don't know why, but we let him go, which sucks. But he is blossoming into an all-star, a great player, and they have an identity. Mavericks do not. And that's why I have them at number 7. Once they establish the identity, they could possibly be up there even better, but they haven't. And they've had time to establish that, and they still struggle with that. And like I said, until they do so, they aren't going to be really high on my rankings. And lastly, just like we're all in agreement, the Cleveland Cavaliers can't have nothing nice in Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell is about the only bright side that they have besides their baseball team right now. But that's another story. But it's true. Their offense is atrocious. Donovan Mitchell could only do so much for that team. And just like David said, they were bullied on the court against this Magic team. Even though they jumped out to a 2-0 start in that series, the Magic came back. And yes, the Magic did blow Game 7, but that it showed that the Magic belonged, and I felt like the Cavs did not. So that's why I think everybody's in agreement with them being at 8, and Boston's going to have their way with them just like they showed the other night. So I see that being more foreshadowing of what's to come.
Since we're talking about the NBA, real quick, I want to and we talked about the Wolves before, and we know that Rudy Gobert missed game 2 for a very understandable reason. It was the birth of his first child, and I think we all heard what Gilbert Arenas had said. He said something along the lines of, it's a baby, like it'll be there when you come back home. And mind you, Gilbert Arenas is a father of 4. And Ed, I want to go to you because I'm assuming you were there for the birth of your child. Can you just explain? Can you just tell Gilbert Arenas why he's such a moron?
Well, there could be a couple of reasons for that, but let's stick to this. You never, ever, you're never, ever not going to be there for the birth of your first kid. There's no way. And to think that, oh, well, uh, you play basketball, so you have to be there for your team. I kind of get it in the sense of you are putting yourself above the team when everybody else is giving themselves for the team. I think that's kind of where he was going, but he's completely misguided. I've seen a lot of comparisons to this situation and the Scotty Scheffler situation in golf, where he was going to miss the Masters, even if he was leading on the last day to go be with his wife in the birth of their first child. Which in that situation, Scotty Scheffler would be the only one suffering in that aspect. In this, if the Timberwolves lost that game because they didn't have Rudy Gobert with them, there would have been a lot more chatter about this particular subject, and almost more people defending Gilbert Arenas because of it. But hindsight is 2020, so they can't really do that at this point because the way the Timberwolves did dominate Game 2. So I understand kind of, if you dig through it, you can kind of see where Gilbert Arenas is going, but it's absolutely not the case whatsoever. You're going to be there for the birth of your kid, and nothing's going to stop you from doing that. Now, if they were to have the conversation, say, seventh game of the finals, that is a completely different conversation than game 2 of round 2 of the playoffs. But still, the point still stands. You're not going to miss the birth of your kid. You would find some way to be there and then be back for the game.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was such a bad take on Gilbert Arenas' part. I feel like that, and even the whole panel up there, because it seemed like the panel was just almost kind of in agreement with him, where they didn't really want to stand up too much. I mean, even at one point, one of the members even said, if he's still there or whatever, and it was just like, you don't talk like that, you don't joke like that. Props to Rudy Gobert and what he did, because he prioritized his family first, and I want to give him his props for doing so. But really quick, since we're talking about the Wolves, do you guys feel like Anthony Edwards is kind of slowly maybe becoming the face of the NBA? Can you see that trajectory?
Definitely, because
I maybe don't. He's got the talent to, but he's not in the market to. That's the difference.
I think he's trying to be that market, but he's also coming by as young at the same time. I mean, he's doing things that I don't know. I just feel like he's not going about it fully the right way, but he definitely could be. I really think so. I think he could have that it factor, that face of the NBA. It's just I think he has some growing up to do.
I think Anthony Edwards could be the face of the league for a couple of reasons. One, he's obviously immensely talented, but two, he's got the personality to be the face of the league. And Ed, your point is well taken, but I think the other thing too, and this might not be the best comparison, but just kind of hear me out, right? When you look at the Chicago Bulls, yes, obviously you cannot compare Chicago to Minneapolis. It's just not, as far as vibes and as far as just all that jazz. You simply cannot compare them, right? But when you're comparing the Bulls to the Wolves as teams, you look at the history of the Bulls guys, or you just look at their team as a whole. The truth is, the Bulls are actually a mediocre team, and they have always been a mediocre team, except for that one era in the 90s when they just straight up dominated everybody, thanks to none other than Michael Jordan. Okay, but you take away their dynasty, right? You take away the Bulls dynasty, they are mostly a mediocre team, and they have not recovered since. Yes, they did have a few decent seasons with Derrick Rose, but ultimately they were not able to, reach the mountaintop. To me, I'm seeing the same thing with Anthony Edwards, where he could potentially take a team that's mostly been irrelevant for its entire existence, but then elevate them to relevance and elevate them to get to the mountaintop.
Well, I want to kind of switch and talk about another player that this team has been relevant, but he has really made a name for himself, mainly because a lot of people can't pronounce it. But that is Victor Wembanyama, who was the unanimous Rookie of the Year this year in the NBA. And he really kind of took the NBA by storm because he was the number one pick. He's this really tall, lengthy guy, and he possesses the skill set that you do not expect to see with someone that size. And we saw it with Chet Holmgren, even though this was also Chet Holmgren's rookie year, but not a single vote. Not a single vote for him because this was all Victor's show. Was this a top 10 rookie season of all time? Do you think when it comes to what he did this year? I mean, Spurs didn't really do a whole lot, did they?
Not only did they not do a whole lot, but Ed, they didn't even improve on the record. I mean, credit to them, they didn't get worse, but they didn't improve either. They had the exact same record.
True. And that's why it's hard for me to say that. Say that it was a top 10 rookie year of all time. I have seen lists that have him at the bottom half of maybe a top 10 or a top 15, but still ahead of LeBron. Uh, and that was a shocker to me when I saw these lists.
Mm-hmm.
When you have Wembayama, he's learning a new style of basketball because he was in the French league before coming over, which isn't as physical, which doesn't have the quality of players that you're playing against night in, night out. And to come in and lead the league in blocks immediately and get your uh, game improved since the All-Star break, basically twice as good as what you were the beginning of the year, because you've acclimated, you have improved, you have gotten some weight on, you've gotten some muscle on to get through the rest of the season. It's not a it isn't a best season I've ever seen type situation. I mean, hell, when you talk about David Robinson and Tim Duncan, the team improved by at least 35 games when each of those were in their rookie season. So, to your point, David, no, they did not improve and they didn't get worse as far as their record.
Yeah.
But I think they are improving, and we'll see more of it next year than what you see in the record this year.
The other thing too is that yes, I think Victor Wembanyama 1,000% deserved Rookie of the Year, but I'm not sure he deserved unanimous Rookie of the Year. And I think a big reason for that was because he was such a big media hype machine. I mean, he was the most hyped rookie coming into the NBA, I would say, since Luka Doncic. I mean, like, did Chet Holmgren really not deserve some first place votes? Because a lot of people don't realize this, and I think Matthew, one of you guys mentioned it earlier tonight, I think, but a lot of people don't realize it because when they think of OKC, they think of offense, but the Thunder actually had one of the best defenses in the league. They were, I think they were top 5 in both offensive and defensive rating, and a big reason for their top 5, maybe top 10 defensive rating was because of Chet Holmgren. So again, Wembanyama definitely deserved Rookie of the Year, but I think all the hype that he got definitely contributed into him getting unanimous Rookie of the Year.
With Chet Holmgren, though, he did get almost every second place vote too, so he wasn't completely ignored.
Yeah,
he just wasn't the first place vote on every ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think with Chet Holmgren, for him it was not only the hype with Victor Wembanyama, but it was also that AT&T commercial. Everyone just can't stand it now.
Yeah.
And it's like that the voters had that in mind. They're like, "Oh, we can't vote for him. Come on."
Admittedly, like, I thought the commercial was kind of funny at first, like not hysterical, but enough for me to go, all right, that's kind of funny, but it has been beyond overplayed now.
It is like every other commercial. You can't escape it. It's like, remember back in the day, speaking of phone commercials, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You ain't hear that anymore. Now you're
Yeah.
hearing this. It's like I'm about to start watching this on mute. So I can't hear
It's almost
you
like
now.
the Burger King commercial or the Verizon commercial with Einstein. Oh, just
Yeah, it's there comes a time, but that's great advertisement. It really is. That's the thing. You hate it. They're doing something right. Because how did I know it was an AT&T commercial? Because I hate it that much. So
Yeah.
they somehow, that's just how marketing works. But yeah, all great points there. With impact of winning being at 0. I think he had an impact on the court, just not an impact on wins, because of what he was able to do coming over from the French league to here and just taking the league by storm, especially with the blocks. But when you have like an 8-foot long wingspan, you better be blocking them damn balls. That's all I got to say. But he has brought a lot of talent that is transferred to the NBA. So that's why I definitely support him being Rookie of the Year. Unanimous is a little tough because I think Chet Holmgren did have an incredible year. But at the end of the day, it's not really going to matter because he still won Rookie of the Year, and I think we all agree with that. But I want to talk about another league and a number one pick, and that is last night officially in the NHL. The San Jose Sharks won the draft lottery. They now have the rights to the number one overall pick, and it's already been widely considered that they are going to draft Macklin Celebrini from Boston University, who is just a big hockey standout in college right now, but he has some family ties too. What's up, David?
Yeah, real quick, was it? And if you don't remember, that's fine. Was it Boston University or Boston College that won the Frozen Four?
Pretty sure Boston University.
Boston
I'm pretty
University.
sure it was pretty much because of him. I mean, he is that good, and it's almost like it is kind of just a perfect scenario because his father actually works for the Golden State Warriors. So he's grown up there. He played for the junior San Jose Sharks, a 14U team. So he's already familiar with the area. He knows everything there is about it. So it's kind of surreal that this is pretty much what's going to happen. This is the first time the San Jose Sharks have gotten the number one overall pick as well. And they don't just have the number one overall pick, they have the 14th as well, which they've got from my Penguins in the trade for Erik Karlsson. So San Jose Sharks, similar to San Antonio Spurs in the NBA, they are going to have quite a rebuild here where they can get some good pieces to hopefully have a team in the future. So that's pretty big news here to talk about. But yeah, Celebrini, though, is going to be worth the number one overall pick. It's just these drafts, they're funny. I don't know if you guys have caught any of the videos, but it's just here they are in this little tiny room over at the NHL headquarters. There's not even a window in there. It just seems so awkward to me.
What are and I don't know, maybe they already have a name for it, but what are they going to call his goal celebration? Because his last name sounds almost exactly like Celebration.
I guarantee I'm gonna have to look up Boston University and see. They probably already have something,
Right.
but it's when you have like that, it's a marketing. It's right there. It's so
Yeah.
much marketing just with
Brand.
having a last name like yes, exactly. So look out for that one. I mean, over the years we have seen number one picks blossom into just all stars. We've seen it with Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby. So who's going to be this next greatest? Could be one of the greatest of all time. It all begins here, and Celebrini could be one of the next greats. So, but I did not mention his name, but Connor McDavid. We have the Battle of Canada that is taking place right now, and that is between the Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks. The reason I say this is because they're the last two remaining Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they are facing against each other. And David, I know you're going to have a field day with this. You'll have fun to talk about it, but only two Canadian teams just in the last 15 years have represented in the Stanley Cup finals. Is that going to continue this year?
I mean, maybe. I said before that I'm picking the Stars to win the Western Conference since the only two Canadian teams are in the Western Conference, and I think Dallas is going to win the Western Conference. But if I had to pick which Canadian team is going to go all the way, or at least go to the finals, it's got to be the Canucks for me. I think they've been one of the most well balanced teams in the league from start to finish. As good as the Oilers are, I am a little concerned about their depth right now, especially because so far in the first round, Zach Hyman and Leon Draisaitl have accounted for I think like 55% of their goals. Well, take them away, and then where would Edmonton be right now? I'm not trying to take credit away from the rest of the players. I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but again, I am a little concerned about Edmonton's depth, and I feel like their depth has been their biggest killer. Well, that and defense over the past few years. So who knows? They might prove me wrong, but I got to go with Vancouver here if I'm going to pick a Canadian team.
Yeah, Ed, and it's tough because obviously there's more teams in America and the NHL than there are Canadian teams. So the odds are always tough, but we know, Canadians are very well equipped in their hockey skills. They're born practically on skates, but
Eh?
and it's only letter in their alphabet. And so it is kind of tough when you are comparing almost apples to oranges just because of the ratio. But Ed, do you all still see this trend continuing? Because the last team was the Montreal Canadiens. David knows about that one, and then before that was, I want to say, the Senators. I mean, back in
The
uh,
last the last Canadian team to make it, before Montreal was actually the Canucks.
was the Canucks. Sorry, it was
Yes.
Vancouver. Yes.
And then
So
and then just here's another fun random fact: the Canucks were also the last team to make it after winning the President's Trophy in a full season.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. So I mean, Ed, you agree kind of that it's going to continue?
The NHL is going to be an American team led uh, championship until it isn't. It's who knows how much longer this is going to go. I mean, my goodness, it's already been over 30 years since the last time that a Canadian team actually won the Stanley Cup. So when's it end? I
Yeah.
mean, when we saw all that migration of and transport of teams in the 90s, it was mainly Canadian teams coming south. There's no team that's actually going up north to to plant their flag in anywhere in Canada. It's all coming south. It's all coming to these bigger markets that have bigger TV contracts that they can exploit for more money as part of their organization. So I don't see that trend changing this year for sure because I do have the Stars winning the championship. And who knows when the next time is going to be that we have a full Canadian team. Because you see the Canadians out there, they will follow their players
mm-hmm.
because they will know which team has the most Canadians on them, but they won't have their Canadian team. It's just a weird way of how it goes. And it's gotten that bad for the Canadian fans out there that they cannot follow a Canadian team and expect to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs, uh, to the finals, and win the trophy. They have to do it through proxy of a team in America with a bunch of Canadians on it.
I do think also that I think the next Canadian team to win it all is going to be the Oilers. I don't think any Canadian team is going to win it this year, but I do think the next Canadian team to win it is going to be the Oilers, and it is because, shocker, Connor McDavid, and it's because there's always these players where it just seems inevitable that they're going to win a Stanley Cup. And Connor McDavid is that kind of player. And even if it takes until the tail end of his career, I cannot see Connor McDavid retiring without a cup. Hell, even Alex Ovechkin, when it just seemed like, okay, he's just not destined to win a cup. Even he finally won it with the Washington Capitals. And Alex Ovechkin, to me, is that same kind of player. He has that same kind of vibe where you're just expecting a cup from him. So even if it takes a long time, even if it takes until McDavid is near retirement, and by saying that, I am saying that will it be a long time until a Canadian team wins it all? Probably, and that would be very funny. But I do think that the Oilers are going to be the next Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup because of Connor McDavid.
Yeah, he's almost destined to, and that I'm so glad you brought that up because that was pretty much my next point. There was he has all these accolades already in his career, but the one that he does not is hoisting the Stanley Cup trophy. So what is it going to take? Because you look at Ovechkin, it took 13 years for Ovi to finally win his first Stanley Cup, and it's so gratefully deserved. And you see Connor McDavid, he's going down that same path. He every year he is, with the Hart Trophy and all that. He's just so talented this year. 100 assists. I mean, this guy put up freakish numbers like he always does. But once again, he does not have a Stanley Cup trophy. So that's why it's like, what's it going to take? And David, you pretty much talked about it earlier. It's the depth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you want to call him a one-man wrecking crew because he's that good, but you can't be a one-man wrecking crew to win the Stanley Cup. And so that's why they are going to need depth. They need more additions to really help out his chances at being able to do that, because we know how talented he is, just like we know how talented Ovechkin is. And so it finally happened 13 years later, and that's how long it could take for Connor McDavid. So he kind of just going to have to wait, but I don't see it happening this year, because the winner of the Canucks and Oilers is going to have to face the winner of the Avalanche and the Stars, and that's not going to be an easy task to get by.
And then the one last thing that I will add is that I think if or when the Oilers make the Stanley Cup Finals with McDavid, I think they're just going to absolutely destroy the opposition, because they finally got to that point and they're hungry as ever. Connor McDavid is hungry as ever. Same thing would happen with Ovechkin when he finally vanquished his Penguins demons. And you just had to know in hindsight, yeah, nobody's going to stop him right now. This man is on a mission. So I think when McDavid finally does get to that point, he is going to be on a mission and nobody's going to stop him.
Yeah, and I remember that year like it was just last year, but this was Vegas's inaugural year when they faced off against the Caps and Ovechkin, and Vegas won Game 1. That was it. That was the only game they won. After that, they kicked it into high gear. I think it became more real for Ovechkin and the Caps, and they just demolished them. And I see that happening with an Oilers team once they do make it. They'll finally be there, and it's like a talent like Connor McDavid, you do have a team that will rally behind him to make sure he gets one, in addition to them getting one. I mean, that's your goal when you make it to the pros, is to win. So that's what I think is really going to take, and we'll find out when it happens, because I do see it happening as well. But this year's Stanley Cup, though, playoffs is still in full effect. We do have great matchups happening in the East as well, with the Rangers and the Hurricanes, as well as the Bruins and the Panthers. So stay tuned for more on that. But that is about all we have today. But in the time being, if you could like, subscribe, and share these videos, and also drop in the comments your predictions, Stanley Cup playoffs, and you do see a Canadian team finally representing. It's been a couple years. Will they pull through, or will the trend continue to happen? Then also give us your rankings 1 through 8 on the NBA playoffs, the current teams that are in it right now, and how you feel they should be ranked 1 through 8. But we appreciate your guys' input. Continue to always give it. It is always well received, and we hope to communicate more with you guys when it comes to that. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.